The idea came to me in the quiet. One of those gray afternoons when the house feels too big and the silence presses in a little too tightly. I was cleaning out the drawer in the hallway, the one full of tangled chargers and expired coupons, when I found an old postcard from Chicago. Ryan had sent it during our first year of marriage, before flights and meetings became routine, before his voice on the phone started sounding like a colleague instead of a husband. "Miss you, can't wait to be home." I ran my fingers over the fading ink, and something inside me shifted. A strange, urgent longing. Not just to see him, but to know. Know if what we had was still there, or if I was just clinging to an outline of something that had already disappeared. He'd left 3 days ago for a 5-day trip, said it was a leadership summit, early mornings, late nights, long panels with CEOs who didn't know how to shut up. I believed him. I always did. Even when something in his voice had grown thinner over the months, stretched across distance that wasn't only measured in miles. We hadn't made love in weeks. Not since that fight about the broken washing machine and how he couldn't deal with everything right now. I told myself it was stress. Work, normal. But now, standing there with that postcard trembling in my hand like a relic, I didn't want to wait for him to come back. I wanted to go to him, surprise him, remind both of us that we still had something worth returning to. It wasn't supposed to be suspicious, more like a gesture, a bridge, a way to erase the strange invisible wall that had grown between us. I booked the flight before I had time to second-guess myself. Round trip, hotel nearby, one carry-on. My finger hovered over the purchase button for a second longer than it should have. Then I clicked. That night, Ryan texted, "Hope your week's going okay. I'll call when I can. Tomorrow's packed." I stared at the message for a long time. Then I turned my phone off. The suitcase sat half open on the bed, a hollow thing waiting to be filled. I moved around the room on autopilot, folding jeans, rolling shirts, slipping makeup into pouches without really thinking. Every item I packed felt like a question I wasn't ready to answer. I was going to surprise my husband. I told myself that, over and over, like a chant. Maya called as I was zipping up my toiletries. "You never do this," she said flatly. I could hear her pacing. She always paced when she was worried. "You hate flying, and you really hate showing up unannounced. What's really going on?" I paused, curling the cord of my hair straightener around my fingers. "Nothing," I lied. "I just miss him." "You miss him every time he travels, but you don't buy a plane ticket and follow him across the country." Her voice was calm, but there was an edge. "You sure this isn't about something else?" I sat down on the edge of the bed. My fingers were trembling slightly. "I don't know. Lately, he's been different. Distant." There was a pause on her end. Then, "You think he's cheating?" I exhaled sharply. "No. I don't know. I'm not going there. I want to see him, that's all." "That's not all, Elena." Her voice softened. "You're going because something doesn't feel right. You're not crazy." I hated that she said it. Because she was right. And also because I needed her to be wrong. I needed this to be nothing. Just a surprise visit. A rekindling, not some twisted proof of what my gut was quietly screaming. "I'll be back in 3 days," I said finally. "It's just a short trip. Elena, I'll be fine. I'll call you when I land." I ended the call before she could say anything else. The room was silent again, but now it felt heavier, like it knew more than I did. I stared at my reflection in the mirror. My face looked the same. Same brown eyes, same too-tired smile. But something behind it had changed. Not broken. Not yet. But something was definitely unraveling. And I had already bought the ticket. Chicago greeted me with its usual indifference. Cold wind curling between buildings, strangers brushing past without eye contact, a sky the color of ash. I pulled my coat tighter around me as I stepped out of the cab and into the city that held my husband for the next 2 days. Somewhere in one of these glass towers, Ryan was moving through his day, completely unaware that I was now less than 3 miles from him. The hotel I booked was intentionally discreet. Boutique, nothing flashy, tucked into a side street with ivy climbing its brick facade. I didn't want the kind of place where I might be noticed or, worse, recognized. I checked in under my maiden name. It felt strange giving it at the front desk, like slipping into a former version of myself. Elena Ward, the girl I used to be before him. My room was small but warm, with floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out onto the gray skyline. I didn't unpack. I didn't sit. I just stood there for a long time, holding my phone, staring at his name in my messages. I wanted to text him, just a simple, "How's your day?" But I didn't. Not yet. I was here now. I wanted to see before I spoke. It was just past 3 p.m. when I finally left the room. Ryan had told me his hotel in passing the Harrington. I remembered because I'd looked it up that night, pretending not to care as I scrolled through its polished pictures. Marble floors, glass elevators, executive lounges. The Harrington was only a 10-minute walk from mine. Close enough for a casual meetup if things went well. Close enough to turn around and disappear if they didn't. My heels clicked across the polished lobby floor as I entered. No one looked twice. I pretended to check the directory by the elevator, but I was scanning for one face. Just one. And then I saw him. Ryan stood near the bar in the lobby lounge, a drink in one hand, his phone in the other, laughing at something. His tie was loosened. His posture relaxed. He looked light. Not like someone weighed down by emails and spreadsheets. He looked like a man on vacation. Or worse, like a man who was exactly where he wanted to be. He didn't see me. I stayed tucked behind a tall column with a potted plant in front of me like I was in some ridiculous spy movie. But I couldn't move. I couldn't take my eyes off him. And then she appeared. She stepped up beside him with 2 glasses of wine and touched his arm with casual familiarity. Her hair was pulled into a sleek ponytail, and she wore a cream blouse tucked into dark jeans, the kind of simple elegance that didn't try too hard. She said something, and he laughed again, louder this time, then leaned in closer, murmuring something I couldn't hear. They looked comfortable, intimate, not like colleagues, not like old friends, something quieter, warmer. My stomach turned. I wanted to walk away, run even, but I stood there like a statue, eyes fixed on the little universe the 2 of them had formed right in front of me. She touched his chest briefly, then laughed at something else he said. That touch, that laugh. It was nothing, and it was everything. My throat tightened. A hotel employee walked past, and I startled enough to shift behind the column. My heart was pounding so loudly I could hear it in my ears. I wanted to tell myself there was an explanation. Maybe she was a client. Maybe it was innocent. But deep down, something inside me had already snapped loose. I turned and walked out, my legs numb and my eyes stinging. I didn't cry. Not yet. But I knew then I hadn't come here to surprise my husband. I had come here to find out if he was still mine. And I already knew the answer. The next morning, the city woke under a pale haze. I hadn't slept much, just drifted between shallow dreams and the steady hum of the radiator. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them. Her hand on his chest. His laugh. The way he leaned in close. It looped in my mind like a cruel film reel that wouldn't stop spinning. By noon, I convinced myself to do what I came here to do. See him, talk to him, get the truth. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe I'd made a mistake. Maybe I wanted to believe that so badly I didn't care how foolish I sounded. I went back to the Harrington that afternoon, telling myself I'd just have coffee in the lobby. Something about being in the same space made me feel closer to clarity or insanity, depending on how you looked at it. The lounge smelled faintly of cedar and citrus. People drifted in and out, all of them looking like they belonged. I sat near the window with a book I wasn't reading, watching the elevator doors open and close. I didn't see him, but I saw his world business suits, name tags, polite laughter echoing off marble floors. Then, from behind me, a woman's voice floated across the room. Mr. Reynolds and his wife will be joining us tonight at 7. Please have the corner table prepared. The words hit me like a physical blow. I turned slowly. 2 hotel staff members stood at the reception desk, one checking a clipboard, the other nodding. Yes, Mrs. Reynolds requested a quiet space. The other replied, Mrs. Reynolds. It took me a moment to process it. Ryan's name was Reynolds. My husband. My last name. My heart stuttered painfully. A beat too slow, then too fast. I forced myself to look casual as I stirred my untouched coffee, but the spoon trembled in my hand. A low ringing filled my ears. I wanted to stand up, to shout that there was no Mrs. Reynolds but me, but my body wouldn't move. Instead, I listened. Memorized every word. A reservation. Dinner for 2. 7 o'clock. The truth had just given me an appointment. And I would be there. I told myself I'd only watch. Just enough to see what was real. I dressed quietly in the dim hotel, light black jeans, a simple blouse, nothing that would draw attention. By the time I arrived back at the Harrington, it was 6:45. The restaurant was already filling with murmurs, clinking glasses, the low hum of jazz. I asked the hostess for a table by the window, one with a clear view of the corner. She smiled, unaware of the storm sitting behind my polite expression. From where I sat, I could see nearly everything: the polished wine glasses, the flicker of candles reflected in the mirrored walls, the table for 2 set just beneath the chandelier. At exactly 7 he walked in. Ryan, my husband. Crisp shirt, sleeves rolled up, that same ease in his shoulders that used to make me feel safe. He looked around briefly, checking his watch, then smiled when he saw her. The same woman. The one from the lobby. She slid into the seat opposite him, her hand brushing his arm. The gesture was casual, practiced, the kind of intimacy that comes from repetition, not accident. I watched through the glass of my half-empty wine. The candle between them flickered as they leaned closer. He poured her wine first. He always did that for me, too. She laughed at something he said, tilting her head back slightly, her fingers grazing his wrist. He didn't pull away. He smiled, that same boyish smile I hadn't seen in months, like he'd saved it for her. A waiter approached their table. "Mr. and Mrs. Reynolds, are you ready to order?" he asked with a polite smile. I nearly dropped my glass. They both nodded in unison. Ryan didn't correct him. He didn't hesitate. He just looked at her like the title belonged to her now. My pulse thudded in my throat. I wanted to burst into laughter or tears or both. Instead, I sat there, frozen in the soft glow of a restaurant that suddenly felt colder than any place I'd ever been. He lifted her hand to his lips, kissed it gently, and said something I couldn't hear. That was the moment I stopped pretending I was imagining things. And for the first time, I truly understood what betrayal looked like. The walk back to my hotel felt longer than it was. The city blurred around me, lights, sirens, laughter, wind. I barely felt the cold. My mind was somewhere else entirely, replaying the way he kissed her hand, the way he smiled like a man with nothing to hide, and the words Mr. and Mrs. Reynolds, like a cruel joke, echoing in my head. I unlocked my door and sat on the edge of the bed without taking off my coat. The room was dim, quiet, and suffocating. I wanted to scream, to break something, to burst into that restaurant and watch the lie collapse in front of everyone. I even stood up, paced, muttered 100 furious lines to an invisible version of Ryan. How long? Who is she? Was I ever enough? But I didn't move, because beneath the rage was something worse: doubt. Not doubt in him anymore, but in myself. What if I was too late? What if the confrontation wouldn't be a revelation but a resignation? What if he looked me in the eye and didn't even flinch? I sat back down. My hands trembled as I opened my phone, staring at the last message he sent. "Hope your week's going okay. That was 2 days ago. No. I miss you. No calls, no questions." The silence wasn't an accident. I pulled out my notebook, one I'd packed for sketching or journaling or something healthy, and instead wrote down everything I'd seen. The dinner. The hand-holding. The kiss. The name. I underlined it 3 times. Mrs. Reynolds. I didn't want to just confront him. I wanted to catch him without an exit. I wanted to burn the lie from both ends and watch it collapse around him. And to do that, I needed more. Not just emotion, evidence, details. I wasn't just the betrayed wife anymore. I was the woman looking for answers. And I would find them. The next morning, I returned to the Harrington, dressed in quiet neutrality, low bun, sunglasses, a beige coat that made me look like any other businesswoman in town. I walked with confidence, with purpose, like I belonged there. And in a way, I did. The front desk had a different attendant this time. Young, polite, too eager to please. I smiled as I approached, holding my phone like I was checking a reservation. "Excuse me," I said casually. "I think my friend is staying here this week." "Ryan Reynolds? I believe he checked in on Monday." I can't remember if it was under his name or his wife's. The attendant tapped at the keyboard. "Mr. Reynolds, yes. He's in a deluxe suite. Been here all week." His wife checked in with him. I kept my smile steady, even though my stomach turned. "Oh, great," I said lightly. "They always forget to tell me the room number when I'm meeting them." He smiled. "I'm afraid I can't give that out, ma'am." "Of course. Totally understand." I winked, as if we were sharing an inside joke. "Do you know if they're still here? I'd hate to miss them." He glanced at the monitor. "They haven't checked out. Looks like they extended through Friday." I thanked him, stepping away slowly, careful not to let the tremble in my hands show. Extended. That meant this wasn't a fling. This wasn't a passing moment. This was something planned, comfortable, permanent. In the corner of the lobby, I sat down and stared out the window, the city moving on without me. My marriage was dissolving in real time, and no one around me even noticed. A cleaning woman passed by, humming to herself. I stopped her gently. "Excuse me, do you know the couple in the Reynolds suite? I might have mixed up their room number." She smiled warmly. "Oh, yes. Very kind. She's been here all week. Beautiful woman. Always asks for extra towels." That was it. One sentence. One casual truth. She had been here all week, living my life, sleeping in his bed, using my name. The woman they called Mrs. Reynolds. And I was ready to meet her. Sleep was a stranger. I lay in bed that night, eyes open, staring into the dim shape of the ceiling, like it held answers I couldn't reach. The streetlight outside painted lines across the carpet, glowing and fading as cars passed by. Hours felt like minutes. Minutes felt like small eternities. My body was still, but my mind raced spiraling, looping through years of memories that no longer felt like they belonged to me. I remembered the time Ryan made me coffee at 6 a.m. Before my interview, scribbling, "You've got this, Mrs. Reynolds," on a sticky note he left on the cup. The way his eyes lit up when we signed the lease on our first apartment, our anniversary in Mexico, the small fights, the long, quiet makeups, all of it now blurred, tainted, reinterpreted under this new light. Had he already been lying then, smiling with secrets tucked in his back pocket? Every time he said, "I'm working late," every conference, every silent dinner where he stared too long at his phone, had she been on the other end? The pain wasn't loud. It was quiet, heavy, like a soaked blanket wrapped around my chest, pressing down until even breathing felt dishonest. I reached for my phone more times than I could count, to call him, to confront him, to scream. But I didn't. My thumb hovered over his contact, heart pounding. What would I even say? "Hi, it's your wife. Just wondering why you have another one." Instead, I stared at the screen until it dimmed and faded to black like everything else between us. At 4:17 a.m., I sat up and turned on the light. My reflection in the mirror startled me, not because I looked bad, but because I didn't look broken. I looked calm, calm in that sharp, dangerous way that comes right before something irreversible. Tomorrow, I'd stop waiting. Tomorrow, I'd watch him. Morning came gray and heavy, like the sky knew something I didn't. I dressed simply again, hood pulled low, coat zipped high. I skipped coffee. My stomach was already in knots. At 8:43 a.m., I saw him. Ryan stepped out of the Harrington with his phone pressed to his ear, laughing softly. He wore the navy wool coat I bought him last Christmas, the one he said made him feel expensive. I followed at a careful distance, staying close enough to see him, far enough to not be seen. He walked with that same confident pace I used to admire. I matched his rhythm like second nature, muscle memory, wife's instinct. He turned down Michigan Avenue, weaving past tourists in suits with coffee cups. I kept close, ducking into shop windows whenever he paused. I didn't know what I was looking for until I saw it. He stepped into a jewelry store. Not just any Rosenthal's. Old world, velvet glass luxury. The kind of place you don't enter unless you have something serious in mind. My heart stuttered. I crossed the street, stood half-shielded by a pillar outside the bookstore across from it, pretending to look at a window display while watching him through the reflection. Inside, he laughed with the woman behind the counter. She brought out a small tray, a thin, elegant box. He opened it. His expression softened. That's the face I used to see when he looked at me. I stood there in the wind, watching him nod, then reach into his coat and pull out a credit card. He was buying it. A necklace? A bracelet? A ring? For her, not me. Not the woman he built a life with. For the woman who took my name without asking. He stepped outside a few minutes later, his gait lighter, like someone with a secret in his pocket. He didn't see me, didn't even glance in my direction. Just walked off toward the next block, like the world was still perfectly in place. But mine had tilted. And now, I wasn't just watching. I was hunting for the full truth. The Harrington had a keycard elevator for the upper floors. I knew that from the glossy welcome booklets they left at check-in, the kind that promised privacy and personalized service. What a perfect place for a man with two lives. That afternoon, I returned with a plan I hadn't fully formed until my feet carried me to the elevator bank. I waited until a group of guests stepped in, then slipped behind them just as the doors began to close. A bellhop stood with a luggage cart, smiling, polite. I smiled back, nodded, blended in. Someone tapped their card. The panel lit up. Floor 17. I knew that was it. That had to be where he was. The ride was quiet. Polite chatter. Someone laughed faintly. My heart beat like it wanted to claw out of my chest. As the elevator slowed, two staff members at the front exchanged a few words. "Did you see the Reynolds again this morning?" One whispered. "They're adorable. I swear, they act like they're still honeymooning." I froze. Room 1712. The other replied with a knowing smirk. "She's got style. Elegant. Always so kind." "Lucky guy," the first said, chuckling. The elevator dinged. Doors opened. The bellhop rolled the cart out, and the guests followed. I didn't move. Lucky guy. They said it so casually, like they knew him, like he belonged here with her. I stepped out slowly, walking the hallway like I had somewhere to be. I passed the door, 1712, and stared at the Do Not Disturb sign hanging from the handle like it was mocking me. The truth was no longer a theory. It lived here, in this hallway, in this room, in the mouths of strangers who thought I was the other woman. And the real one? She was still a mystery, but not for long. I booked the appointment under her name. I stood at the spa counter, fingers slightly trembling, forcing a calm smile as I said, "Mrs. Reynolds, 1 p.m., facial." My voice didn't shake. My lie didn't crack. The woman behind the desk smiled brightly. "Of course. Right this way, Mrs. Reynolds. We've been expecting you." She gestured like we were old friends. "Your regular esthetician is ready. You're in room 4 today." Your regular esthetician. So she'd been here before, more than once. I followed her down the soft-lit hallway, passing soothing music and the faint scent of lavender. I walked like the name belonged to me, like this was my life. In a twisted way, it was. Inside the treatment room, a woman in a gray uniform greeted me warmly. "Welcome back. It's great to see you again." I nodded, biting the inside of my cheek. "It's good to be back." She adjusted the chair, chatted as she set up oils. "How's your stay been this time? You and your husband are such a sweet pair. Every time you're here, the staff talks about how happy you two look." I didn't answer right away. I was swallowing down bile. She took my silence for shyness. "I love couples like you. Some people come through here so cold. But you two? Always laughing." I closed my eyes and said nothing. Let the lie stretch around me like a second skin. I imagined her in this room, laughing, talking about him, her husband. I let the facial begin, eyes closed, fists clenched in my lap beneath the warm towels. The therapist's fingers moved gently across my face, but all I could think of was how easily she'd slipped into my place. How easily everyone believed she was me. When it ended, I tipped generously, smiled, walked out like a woman satisfied. But inside, I was sharpening. Because now, I wasn't just looking for the truth. I was ready to take it back. It was amazing how easily the world moved for those who asked with just the right tone. A kind smile, a soft voice, and a folded bill pressed discreetly across a marble counter. The concierge's name tag read Ben. He looked young. Sharp suit, clean haircut, eyes just eager enough to want to impress. I caught him alone behind the desk as the afternoon lull settled over the lobby. I feel ridiculous asking, I began, leaning in slightly, but I'm trying to surprise a friend of mine. She's staying here with her husband. I just forgot the name the reservation's under. I smiled, light, disarming. She mentioned the corner suite. I think it's 1712. Ben hesitated, fingers hovering above the keyboard. I leaned in just a touch more and slid the crisp $100 bill across the desk. He blinked, then glanced around. The hotel was quiet. No one was watching. "She's your friend?" he asked cautiously. "Yes, Samantha. Blonde. About my height, very stylish. You can't miss her." He hesitated, then nodded once. "Yes. Samantha Hart. She and Mr. Reynolds have been here all week. Extended their stay until Friday." Samantha Hart. The name landed like a cold drop on my spine. Familiar but hollow. Too clean. Too curated. A name that sounded like it came with glossy hair and expensive perfume. Right, that's her. I tucked the name into my chest like a sharp object. "Thanks, Ben," he smiled. "Anytime, ma'am. Ma'am." I turned from the desk and walked slowly toward the elevator, heart pounding in that steady, now familiar rhythm of rage. Samantha Hart. Now the ghost had a name, and I planned to look her in the eyes. The spa was quiet again the next day, mid-morning light spilling through frosted windows, soft flute music playing like nothing in the world had ever broken. I hadn't meant to return, but I had to see her. And something told me this was the place she would be. I sat in the lounge sipping cucumber water I didn't want, flipping pages of a magazine I didn't read, heart ticking like a countdown clock. Then she walked in. I didn't recognize her at first. She wore oversized sunglasses and a long cream coat. Her hair swept into a glossy chignon. But when she pulled her glasses off, I knew. The jawline. The lips. The voice I'd heard it once already. Through a hotel door. Samantha. She stepped up to the reception desk like she owned the air around her. "Samantha Hart, 10:30 facial." The receptionist beamed. "Of course, Mrs. Reynolds. You're in room 4 again today." Room 4. My room. The one I'd borrowed the day before. Samantha smiled politely, unaware I was sitting 10 feet behind her, watching every practiced movement, every calm nod, every false detail she believed about her life. She passed me without a second glance, and I studied her, how she moved, how she carried herself, how easily she wore my name. I wanted to hate her, but something in her softness, in her unbothered laugh, when the receptionist complimented her earrings, it didn't scream, "other woman." It screamed unaware, and that was somehow worse. She didn't know I existed, because he never told her. I let her disappear down the hallway before I stood and walked out, my pulse loud in my ears. Samantha Hart wasn't my enemy. She was something else entirely. A reflection. A warning. The second wife, who had no idea she was the second. It wasn't a plan, not exactly. I hadn't meant to follow her. But when I saw Samantha step out of the Harrington just after noon, hair loose this time, jacket draped casually over one arm, phone pressed to her ear, my feet moved before I could talk myself out of it. She looked relaxed, like a woman with time. She strolled down the block like she knew the rhythm of the city, like it belonged to her, like he did. I kept distance, weaving between pedestrians, pretending to check my phone, slipping behind parked cars at red lights. I don't know what I expected, maybe to find her slipping into his office, or meeting another man. Something. Anything. But she didn't go far. Just a few blocks away, she ducked into a small boutique cafe, with brass lamps and velvet chairs. The kind of place that looked like a lifestyle blog. I followed and took a corner seat behind a bookshelf divider. From where I sat, I could hear her clearly. She ordered green tea, sat by the window, answered another call. "Yes, I'm still here," she said, voice bright. "He's in meetings most of today, but we're doing dinner tonight." A pause. She laughed. Yes, he's good. Always on, you know. He's been amazing, really. I mean, he's my husband. What can I say? He's my husband. The words landed like a punch. Casual, confident, real. She didn't say it like someone trying to convince herself. She said it like it was obvious. Like it had been true for a long, long time. I felt something hot crawl up my chest. Not the dull ache of betrayal, but something sharper rage, pure and unfiltered. The kind that makes your hands go numb. He gave her my title, my name, my life. And she didn't even know it wasn't hers to have. She finished her tea in soft, content silence. I watched her through the blurred edge of the glass, my heart no longer breaking. It was hardening. The walk back to my hotel was slow. Cold wind sliced between buildings. But I barely noticed. I kept seeing her face soft, radiant, untouched by suspicion. The way she said, my husband, like it was as natural as breathing. And I kept hearing his laugh, the one he used to save for me, now floating in a stranger's cafe like a borrowed song. By the time I reached my room, I felt hollow. I sank onto the bed, clutching my coat like armor, and let my thoughts unravel in silence. That's when the flashbacks started. Little things, meaningless things. Until now. That time he came home late from a flight delay, and his shirt smelled faintly of perfume, not mine. He blamed the woman in the cab beside him. I believed him. The calls he took on the balcony when I entered the room. Just work stuff, he said, slipping his phone into his pocket a little too quickly. How he changed his phone password last spring. It's about client confidentiality, he claimed. I laughed and let it go. The business trip to Seattle that didn't line up with his calendar. The night he forgot our anniversary dinner. The sudden push for separate bank accounts. It all rewound through my memory, like film in reverse, each scene darkening as it played back. It wasn't about one moment. It was the slow erosion of trust, the constant rewriting of what I thought I knew. He hadn't just lied to me. He'd made me a ghost in my own life. And I let him. I pulled my knees to my chest, sat in the silence of that strange room, and for the first time, I didn't cry. I couldn't. Something colder had taken hold. The lies weren't hidden anymore. They were screaming, and I wasn't going to look away again. He never was good with tech. Ryan once locked himself out of his laptop for an entire weekend because he forgot his own security questions. But the one thing he did obsess over? His tablet. It went everywhere with him. Conferences, meetings, even our couch on movie nights. He claimed it was for work, but I always saw the flicker of messaging apps, hidden behind spreadsheets. So when I spotted it abandoned on a table by the window in the Harrington's lounge the next afternoon, I knew it was his. Black leather case, silver scratch on the corner. Like a scar. He'd stepped away to take a call, holding his phone with one hand, gesturing with the other. Samantha was across the room, speaking to someone at the bar. It took seconds. I slipped the tablet off the table like it was mine, turned my back to the room, and opened it. The password was his birthday. Still, the home screen flickered to life, and I tapped the photo app first. There they were, dozens of them. Him and Samantha, smiling on a balcony with ocean behind them. A candlelit dinner, matching robes. One shot of her in sunglasses, curled into his side, his hand possessively on her thigh. The date? 2 months ago. The same week he told me he had a training seminar in Denver. My fingers shook as I scrolled. Each image was worse than the last, not just because of what they showed, but because of what they meant. These weren't stolen moments. They were carefully documented, archived, treasured. A man doesn't take photos like that unless he's proud of what he's doing. He never posted a single photo of us on his socials. He said he was private. Said his job didn't allow it. But this? This wasn't private. This was a second life. I looked up. He was still on the phone, laughing softly. I slid the tablet back exactly where it was and walked out of the lounge with a calm I didn't recognize. He had left his truth unattended, and I had finally picked it up. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat cross-legged on my bed, the glow of my laptop lighting up the shadows around me. I'd never gone looking before. I'd always trusted that if something were wrong, he'd tell me. But now I knew. He was never going to tell me anything, so I dug. I started with our shared accounts. The ones we used for bills, groceries, boring, middle-of-the-road expenses. But then I searched for email confirmations, scanned for forgotten passwords, cross-referenced old receipts. I found an account under a Gmail I'd never seen before, buried in our PayPal recovery list. When I clicked through, it opened to a different world. Flights I never knew he took, hotels I'd never stayed in, restaurants we never visited together but he had multiple times. All of it charged to cards I didn't know existed. One, Amex had monthly charges to a flower delivery service. Another to a jewelry subscription. Yes, subscription. He was sending gifts on rotation. Scheduled, polished, rehearsed. This wasn't a man who'd made a mistake. This was a man living two fully constructed lives. I kept going. The rabbit hole didn't end. I found a second Venmo account under a different name. Payments marked with vague emojis, wine glasses, hearts, palm trees. I found Uber receipts from cities he never told me he visited. I found a second phone plan. When I pulled the account, I saw the device model. Same as the one he carried, only it wasn't one. It was two. A second phone. One for her. One for me. He wasn't just cheating. He was compartmentalizing us, filing our lives into separate folders so cleanly, we never saw each other. He didn't slip. He designed this. I sat back, staring at the screen, my heart no longer racing, just beating with the dull certainty of someone who now understood everything she never wanted to. The affair wasn't the worst part. The deception was, because it wasn't impulsive. It was organized. And I wasn't the only one who'd been fooled. Now it was just a matter of how and when I'd let it all explode. I didn't plan to speak to her. Not at first. I thought watching would be enough. But the more I learned, the more I needed to hear it from her own lips to know what she believed. To know just how deep Ryan's lies had gone. It happened at a coffee shop near the hotel. One I'd seen her visit before. I arrived first, waited by the window with my coat draped over the back of my chair. When she entered, I stood up just enough to catch her attention. "Excuse me," I said. "Are you Samantha Hart?" She blinked, surprised but polite. "Yes? I'm so sorry," I said, slipping into the role like a second skin. "I'm an event planner with the Harrington. We've been collecting feedback from long-term guests, and your name came up as one of our preferred clients. Do you mind if I ask you a few questions? Shouldn't take more than 5 minutes." Her face lit up the way mine used to, when people made me feel special. "Oh, sure, that's so kind of you." She sat down across from me. Her coat fell open, revealing a delicate necklace, likely one of the many Ryan had chosen with such care. I hated how easy it was to like her. Her voice was warm, her smile real. None of this was her fault. "So you've stayed with us before?" I asked. "A few times," she said, sipping her latte. "My husband Ryan Reynolds, he travels a lot for work. We meet in different cities when we can." "Husband." She said it without hesitation, without a flicker of doubt. "How long have you two been married?" I asked, pen hovering above a blank page I wasn't writing on. She smiled. "Almost 2 years." Then laughed a little. "I mean, we haven't done anything legal yet, but we've talked about it. Rings, vows, the whole thing. He says it just hasn't been the right time with his career." 2 years. The same amount of time he started pulling away from me. I nodded. "That's lovely, he sounds devoted." She beamed. "He really is. Honestly, I don't know how he balances it all. I'm just lucky." I forced a smile. She wasn't the second wife. She thought she was the only one. It took a single moment of opportunity. Late the next day, I returned to the Harrington's front desk while Ryan was out. I knew his schedule by now, his fabricated meetings, his afternoon workouts, the evening dinners where he played house with her under my name. I leaned in, eyes wide, urgency in my voice. "Hi, sorry, I just saw a man collapse outside. I think he might be a guest here. Ryan Reynolds? Could you check if he's in? It might be serious." The concierge's expression turned grave. "Let me check right away." He tapped quickly, unaware that my heart was hammering, not from guilt, but from what I was about to confirm. "Mr. Reynolds is not in his room," he said after a moment. "Should I alert emergency contacts?" I nodded. Yes, please, that would be smart. He turned the screen just slightly, and that's when I saw it. Emergency contacts. Samantha Hart. Relationship, spouse. Elena Reynolds. Relationship, spouse. There it was, in black and white. No more metaphors, no more questions. Just two names, side by side. Two lives filed under one man's lies. He hadn't just slipped up. He'd institutionalized the deception. Had Samantha listed like a legal partner. Had me still filed under the truth he'd buried. He wasn't juggling a secret. He was building a system. I stood there in the lobby, nodding calmly, pretending to be helpful while my world shifted beneath my feet. No need to call anyone yet, I said quickly. It might have been someone else. Just wanted to be sure. The concierge nodded. Let us know if you hear anything more. I thanked him and walked out without looking back. Now I knew. We were both listed as his wife. This wasn't an affair. It was a shared title. A deliberate double life. And one of us was going to tear it all down. I didn't knock. I used the spare keycard I had swiped from the concierge. When he turned to check the system, something I hadn't planned, but couldn't stop myself from doing once I saw it. 1,712. The suite where she slept. Where he lived? I stood in the hallway for a full minute before I moved. My heart pounded, but my hands were steady. Everything inside me was quiet, like my body had gone into survival mode. No panic, just execution. The card slid. The light turned green. I stepped in. The suite smelled like him. Sandalwood. Clean linen. A faint trace of her perfume. The room was too neat. Her scarf lay draped on the back of a chair. His blazer hung over the couch. 2 glasses, by the minibar one lipstick stained. Music still playing from the speaker. A private world they had curated, wrapped in silence and stolen hours. I walked toward the window. My reflection hovered there, caught between city lights and night shadows. The door clicked behind me. Elena? His voice froze the air. He stepped in, keys in hand, expression shifting from confusion to disbelief to something colder, fear. What are you? How did you? I turned slowly. You left the door wide open, Ryan. He blinked. This isn't. Don't, I said. One word, sharp, final. Don't lie, not now. He dropped the keys on the counter with a clatter. His face flickered shock, calculation, denial. I can explain. No, I said. You can listen. I stepped closer. I've seen everything. I've heard her call you her husband. I watched you kiss her hand. I've been in this hotel for days, watching you build a second marriage under my name. Elena, it's not. It is exactly what it looks like. My voice cracked, not from pain, but from rage held in place too long. You didn't just cheat. You created a life, a home, a lie so big you needed 2 emergency contacts just to hold it up. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. You've said enough, I said. Now I want the truth. He sat down slowly, like a man preparing to perform grief. His hand shook just enough to be believable. His voice, when it finally came, was soft, controlled, polished, like it always was when he wanted something. Elena, he began. I didn't mean for it to happen like this. I almost laughed. I didn't plan it, he said quickly, seeing my expression. It just happened. We were distant. You and me. You stopped looking at me the way you used to. And so you married someone else? I asked, arms crossed. No. I mean, not married. Not officially. He looked down. She thinks we're engaged. But we're not. She needed something. I didn't know how to say no. You didn't know how to say no, I repeated. He nodded, grateful for the echo, like it gave him ground to stand on. You were always working late. You stopped laughing at my jokes. I felt alone. I thought we were falling apart. And then she made me feel seen again. I stepped closer. And what about me? Did you think about what it would do to me? Watching you pretend with her? Letting her use my name? Sleeping in our bed in different cities? He looked down at his hands. It wasn't real with her. My voice dropped. You bought her jewelry. You listed her as your wife. I was going to tell you, he said quickly. I didn't know how. I didn't want to hurt you. You didn't want to hurt me, I repeated, this time cold. But you did. Every day, with every choice. He stood suddenly. I didn't mean to fall in love with her. Silence. There it was. He hadn't meant to say it, but he did. I stared at him. No more tears. No more questions. Just the weight of every answer I already knew. You didn't just lie, I said. You replaced me, and you expected me not to notice. He looked at me, eyes glossy, words fumbling. Please, don't leave like this. I walked to the door. I'm not leaving, I said. You are, and I closed it behind me. We didn't hear the door open at first. The suite was too full of tension, of half-buried truths trying to crawl out from under Ryan's carefully constructed lies. He stood by the minibar, shoulders tight, lips parted, like he was still scrambling to rewrite the story I had already read cover to cover. Then the voice came. Bright. Unaware. Babe, did you want to do room service or? Samantha froze in the doorway, holding a shopping bag in one hand, her keycard in the other. Her eyes flicked from Ryan to me and back to Ryan. And in that moment, I saw her entire world snap. She blinked, smile faltering, the pieces falling too fast to catch. What's going on? She asked, voice already unsteady. Ryan stepped forward, hands raised like she was a child frightened by thunder. Sam, wait. It's not what... I turned to her, calm, direct. You don't know me, but you should have. Her brows pulled together. What? I'm Elena Reynolds. I let the name land. Ryan's wife. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. No, she said finally, a dry, brittle whisper. That can't be. He told me he said you were... distant? I finished for her. Absent? Cold? He's good at stories. Has a whole collection. She looked at Ryan. Her face was draining of color. Is this some kind of sick joke? He tried to grab her hand. Sam, please. I didn't want you two to meet like this. You didn't want us to meet at all, I cut in. Because then we'd both know. We'd both stop being shadows in each other's stories. Samantha stepped back, her breath catching. You said you were divorced. Ryan's voice cracked. I was going to fix it. I was going to tell you both. She shook her head. Don't. Just don't. He reached for her again. She recoiled. The truth was no longer hidden. It was standing in the middle of the room. Undeniable. Breathing. And this time, Ryan couldn't lie fast enough to catch up to it. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. Though part of me wanted to. I'd spent days holding it all inside, letting it boil quietly under my ribs. But now, with Samantha's wide, tear-glossed eyes on me and Ryan, speechless in the middle of the room, I didn't need volume. I had the truth. I opened my purse and dropped the folder on the table with a thud. Printed screenshots, flight receipts, photos, duplicated calendars, spa records, copies of both our names listed as Mrs. Reynolds. This is what you built, I said, stepping forward. You didn't just cheat. You engineered this. Systematically. Like a project. Samantha opened the folder and froze. Her hand trembled as she pulled out a photo, one of the two of them on that beach, smiling into the sun, time-stamped with the exact date he was supposedly in Denver at a seminar. That's the week he told me he was with you, she whispered, her voice hollow. I looked at her. And while he was with me, he was texting you. You weren't the other woman, Samantha. Neither was I. We were both the same lie. Ryan's face was pale. I never meant to hurt either of you. You did, though, I said. You hurt us every single day you let this continue. Every minute you looked us both in the eye and told us we were your only one. Samantha's fury bloomed, then, quiet at first, like mine had been. I introduced you to my parents. I defended you when they said something felt off. I moved cities to meet you halfway. He tried to speak. She cut him off. You let me call myself your wife. She looked at me. Something passed between us, mutual devastation, yes, but also understanding. We weren't enemies. We were survivors of the same storm. I loved you, she said to him. He stepped forward, his voice ragged. And I loved you both. That was the problem. No, I said, cold and final. The problem was that you loved yourself most. Silence fell, thick and still. He was out of words. We were out of patience. And Samantha and I were done playing along. Samantha stood frozen for a long time. I could see the war behind her eyes, shock, grappling with heartbreak, fury, wrestling disbelief. But in the end, something inside her snapped clean. She looked at me first. You said it best. We were the same lie. Then she turned to him. I don't care what story you want to tell. I don't want to hear one more word come out of your mouth. Samantha, she held up a hand, her voice sharp now. Don't. You said you loved me, that we were building something. You never mentioned you were already married. You didn't forget. You hid it. Every day. Every message. Every kiss. It was deliberate. He stepped toward her. Please. We can. No. She picked up her purse with one hand and ripped the key card from her coat pocket with the other, tossing it at his feet like it burned her. You are nothing I thought you were. And she walked out. The door slammed so hard the picture on the wall shook. Silence swallowed the room. Ryan turned to me slowly, almost dazed, as if he still believed he could charm his way back from this. Elena. I raised a hand. Don't. His mouth tightened. Let's talk calmly. Like adults. You think this is salvageable? I asked, stepping forward, feeling the heat rise in my throat. You think I'm going to sit down and process this over wine and logic? He started to pace. You want to yell? Fine. You want to cry? I get it, but don't throw away everything. No, you threw everything away, I snapped. I just came to collect what's left. His jaw clenched. What do you want? There it was. I stepped closer, lowering my voice until it was razor sharp. You have two choices. We do this quietly. Lawyers. A clean divorce. No mess. Or I burn it all down. I take every screenshot, every fake receipt, every lie, and I make sure your name is dragged through every courtroom, boardroom, and social circle we've ever touched. He went pale. I'm giving you mercy, I said. Take it. Because if you fight me, I promise you, public disgrace will feel like the easy ending. He stared at me like I was someone he didn't recognize. Maybe he didn't. Maybe he'd convinced himself I'd always be the quiet, loyal shadow in the corner waiting, forgiving, staying. He took a step forward. Elena, please, don't do this. But there was no pleading in his voice anymore. Only panic. I can fix it, he said. I'll go to therapy. I'll make it right. Just give me one more chance. I didn't move. His voice cracked. It was a mistake. A long one. A stupid one. But I never stopped loving you. You're my wife. I raised an eyebrow. And she thought she was. He shook his head, frantic now. She meant nothing. You and I, we have history. You're not seriously going to walk away from all of it. I'm not walking away from the history, I said quietly. I'm walking away from the damage. His expression shifted again, pleading to wounded, then to angry. You're making a mistake. You think anyone's going to believe you over me? I don't need them to believe. I have proof. He stared, eyes narrowing. You'd really ruin my life like that? I stepped toward the door, my coat already in my hand. You ruined it yourself. I just happened to be watching. He followed me to the threshold, one last useless grasp at control. I'll tell them you were unstable, obsessed. You hacked my accounts. I turned slowly, holding his gaze with the calm of someone who no longer feared him. Do it. And when they ask why both your wives left you in the same week, be sure to smile for the cameras. He opened his mouth. I didn't wait to hear another word. I opened the door, stepped into the hallway, and closed it behind me. No scream, no grand goodbye, just silence. Because when a storm ends, it doesn't apologize. It simply moves on, and that's exactly what I was doing. The flight home was quiet. I didn't cry. I didn't scroll through photos. I didn't replay the confrontation. I just sat in the window seat and watched clouds drift past like they owed me nothing. Somewhere between states, I let myself breathe again. When the plane landed, I walked out of the terminal like I had somewhere to be. No one waited for me. No welcome home hugs. But I didn't need one. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't returning to someone. I was returning to myself. The house was still. Too still. But the silence no longer felt like absence. It felt like potential. I dropped my bag at the door, kicked off my shoes, and stood in the foyer, just listening. No keys jingling, no footsteps upstairs, no low hum of Ryan on a call in the study. Just quiet, mine. I walked through each room slowly. Our bedroom first. The closet still held his tailored shirts, his cologne bottle perched like a trophy. I didn't hesitate. I opened a trash bag and started pulling everything down, shirt after shirt. Folded memories turned into dead weight. In the bathroom, his razor sat by the sink, his toothbrush, his stupid skin cream he insisted on hoarding. I swept it all into the bag. The guest room, the kitchen, his golf clubs in the hall closet. Gone, gone, gone. By the time the sun dipped low behind the window blinds, I had cleared half of him from my home. And still, the silence wrapped around me, not suffocating, not empty, but clear, like fresh air after a long, choking storm. I ordered takeout, sat on the floor with a paper plate, and my favorite playlist echoing through the living room. I looked around, not at the gaps where he used to be, but at the space I had taken back. This was day one, not of grief, not of healing, but of rebuilding, and it felt like freedom. Maya showed up the next morning with 2 coffees and 3 legal pads. "Let's burn this man legally," she said, kicking the door shut with her foot. I almost laughed. Almost. She hugged me tightly and didn't say "I told you so." She didn't need to. She'd seen the signs long before I did, but she never judged. She just stood beside me, ready. We called a lawyer that afternoon, Cynthia Brooks. Sharp, fast, no nonsense. The kind of woman who made people like Ryan sweat before she even opened her mouth. By 4 p.m., the papers were in motion. Cynthia didn't flinch when I told her everything: 2 wives, 2 phones, financial deceit. She nodded once, jotting notes like it was all just math. "We'll serve him within the week," she said. "You're filing on grounds of fraud and infidelity. With the evidence you've got, he won't touch a dime more than he deserves." Maya grinned. God, I love her. By the 3rd day, Ryan started trying to delay. He sent messages, voicemails. Classic Ryan, pleading, negotiating, playing the victim. "We can settle this between us," he said. "No need for courts. You're being rash. I still love you." I didn't respond. Cynthia did. He was served on Friday at a hotel in D.C., where he'd already booked a new stay under his own name this time. No more hiding. Maya brought champagne that night. "To fast lawyers and faster healing," she said. I clinked glasses with her and sipped slowly, feeling something unfamiliar wash over me. Not revenge, not sadness. Relief. The process had begun. And for once, Ryan was the one scrambling, cornered, out of options. I had no idea what would come next, but I knew one thing for sure. He wouldn't decide it. I would. It came in the middle of the night. A short, simple text from an unfamiliar number. I knew who it was before I even opened it. "Hi, Elena. It's Samantha. If you're willing, I think we should talk." I stared at it for a long time. I could have ignored it. Could have let her become another closed chapter in the long, messy book of Ryan. But something in me didn't want that. I didn't want her to be a footnote. She deserved better than that. We met at a quiet park downtown, near the library. Neutral ground. No spa music, no hotel hallways. Just 2 women sitting on a bench under a yellowing tree, fall brushing leaves around our feet like the world was starting over. She looked different. Smaller somehow. Less glossy. Real. "Thanks for coming," she said. I nodded. "Thanks for reaching out." Silence sat between us, but it wasn't heavy. It was respectful, careful. "I'm sorry," she said after a while, "for not knowing, for using your name, for all of it." "You didn't know," I said. "You believed him." I did too. She looked at me then, really looked. Her eyes weren't full of pity or apology, just understanding. "I replayed everything," she said softly. "Every text, every kiss, trying to find the moment I should have known." "I did that too," I said. But it doesn't help. She smiled, bitter and kind all at once. Still, at least now I know it wasn't just me. We talked for an hour. About the lies, the anger, the shame, but also about what came next. She was moving back to Chicago, starting over. She had no interest in following up with Ryan, just in unfollowing everything he touched. Before we parted, she reached into her coat pocket and handed me a gold chain, a delicate one. The necklace he bought her. "I don't want this," she said. "But I thought, maybe you'd know what to do with it." I took it, not out of sentiment, but as a reminder, we weren't enemies. We were survivors. And now, we were free. It took me a week to find the courage. The last photo of Ryan and me had lived in a folder buried in my phone, untouched since the beginning of the unraveling. We were smiling, of course. Me leaning into him, his hand on my waist. A beach behind us. Warm light, filtered perfectly. A lie frozen in time. I stared at it. Tried to remember who I was in that photo. Tried to feel the woman who believed in that moment. But she wasn't me anymore. I pressed delete. The screen went blank, just like that. And I didn't cry. I turned away from my phone, walked to the window, and looked out across the skyline. The world outside buzzed like it always did. Cars, voices, life happening with or without me. But I felt it differently now. No weight, no questions, no more wondering if I was enough. I was, not in spite of the wreckage, but because I walked through it and I made it out the other side. I wasn't whole. Not yet. Maybe not for a while. But I wasn't broken. And I wasn't waiting anymore. For him, for closure, for permission to heal. This was my story now. And I was already writing the next chapter. This story was brutal. But this story on the right-hand side is even more insane.